Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Lucas.
and we are two aspiring filmmakers making unnecessary commentary on famous movies.
Each week, we will randomly select a film to analyze, discuss, and review.
We will select the film at the end of each podcast, so you will have ample time to watch the movie before the next episode.
We are slightly qualified film students.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of 2021.
Yes.
This week,
We're coming
it
in.
is Atonement.
Yeah. Atonement from 2007. You want to
Yeah.
give a quick plot summary?
Yeah, for sure. Directed by Joe Wright, based off the Ian McEwan novel, which I've heard was actually insanely popular, even though I've never heard of it. Let's jump into the plot summary here. 13-year-old fledgling writer Brianne Tallis irrevocably changes the course of several lives when she accuses her older sister's lover of a crime he did not commit.
Yes.
That's the plot summary, and it's pretty much spot on. That is exactly what happens in the film.
For the first, I guess that's more like the first 40 minutes of the film.
First 40 minutes, but at the end of the day, that's like the overarching story.
I guess so.
Kind of the events that unfold due to that.
Yeah.
Because, you got to remember that Robbie never would have gone to war in the first place if he didn't get snitched.
That's true.
Because he only joined the army to get out of prison.
That's true.
It sounds simple, and it is actually a decently simple film on paper. While there is a lot of creative elements being used to tell the story, at the end of the day, it's a decently standard romance movie, set in the 30s in England. So everybody's got British accents, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah. I was going in completely blind. You said you've seen it once.
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah, when I guess, so this is my second time watching it, but I forgot a lot about this movie.
You have to have remembered the ending.
Well, yeah, I remembered the ending, but for the most part, I didn't really remember that much. But as I was rewatching this film, I agree, it is a fairly simple romance film. I mean, besides the ending, and it is a bit darker than most romantic dramas, but it is fairly simple. But I gotta say, this movie is beautiful, and I don't know, I feel like that's the word I would use to describe this film. It's just, it has this element of beauty to everything, whether it's the costumes, the cinematography, the acting. I mean, everything just has this layer of beauty to it. And there aren't a lot of movies like that. I mean, there's a lot of films at least the films we've watched so far aren't really of that kind of, they're all kind of have this gritty, dark world involved. So this was kind of a fresh new film we got to watch.
Yeah. And even the scenes that are super gritty, for instance, when Robbie literally stumbles upon like a mass grave of dead nuns.
Yeah.
Even that shot is pretty beautiful.
Yeah, it's true. Or
just in general, all the stuff in France, which is obviously, during World War II, it's a very dark time, and, the makeup and just the costumes are really dark. But all the shots are these really beautiful landscapes.
Yeah. I felt like the entire, war sequence, everything about Robbie, it was just breathtaking, every single shot.
I think that was probably my favorite portion of the film.
Yeah, me too.
The stuff filmed where Robbie is in the war. I just think it kind of gave this aspect of beauty that not a lot of war movies ever really do.
Yeah,
I think war movies sometimes get caught up in portraying it really realistically, so they get really into making everything shaky and
But and then
close up.
There's also the fact that this isn't a war movie. I mean, he's
yeah,
in the
exactly.
war, but there's no actual battles
Yeah.
that we witness. It's more, I
just
guess
him walking to Dunkirk, pretty much, is all you see. But I just think, instead of, getting these really close-up shots of the soldiers, what this film does is it gets the landscape. All the shots are these really wide-open vistas, kind of.
Yeah.
Which gives, this element to this that isn't really seen in many other films. And it totally just adds to this really overarching green, kind of bluish color palette of the whole film. They have this nice color grade that really fits with all the war scenes, as well as the, happier greens we see at the start of the film.
Yeah.
And then it gets really dark and slimy, kind of. So I think it really fits nicely. And the whole film, kind of stylistically, is very tied together.
Yeah, so I'm interested because this was my second time watching the film, so I already knew what was going to happen. But for you, did you... how predictable was...
It was actually quite predictable.
Yeah?
Well, okay. It wasn't like I knew, oh yeah, now it's going to be like her writing the book. But my first thought was that it was going to be like a play that she wrote. And I first kind of was thinking that when we first get to see the older Bryony, when we first see her writing the story and she's like, oh, it's the story of a foolish young girl, then I was like, oh wait, maybe this is going to be a play, because last week you were like, oh, the ending, so I was like, maybe that's going to happen.
Right.
And then when it hard cut to the studio cameras, I wasn't that surprised. It wasn't like a Shutter Island. You get that sense like, oh damn, my whole world just got flipped upside down. It was just kind of like oh, that's interesting.
But, okay, before we go on, people, if you haven't seen this film, go watch it first, because we're going to go into major spoilers right now.
Major spoilers.
But, did you see that they were dead? Was that something you saw coming?
I kind of... I mean, no, I didn't really have that thought. But I think, what really was a bit unsatisfying, I guess, for me with this plot twist, it wasn't the fact that I saw it coming, per se. It was the fact that I didn't really feel like it mattered. Because they do the plot twist in a way that, even if the film resolved with no plot twist, it wasn't resolved,
Right.
Bryony hasn't made it up to them. They're still obviously really pissed at her, and she just kind of leaves. So when the plot twist happened and they were dead, it wasn't like the happy ending turned sad.
Yeah.
It was just like the sad ending turned even more sad, but in a different direction.
It's sad. It's not as sad for Bryony, but it's more sad for their characters, I guess.
Yeah.
When
I agree.
when I was watching this again,
I still cried.
I'll talk about this more when we talk about the ending, but this kind of reminded me of Brazil, the ending. Not but how, it originally with them, with her leaving the house and them kissing in the window, it's kind of has that love conquers all idea.
Yeah.
And then it shuts that down in the next scene. So that's that contrast I felt it had with Brazil for the ending.
Yeah, I see that. I'll talk more about that in ending as well.
Yeah.
And I think for this film, both of our standout scenes are the same. It's got to be the 5-minute long tracking shot on Dunkirk Beach.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just so impressive. This is 1917, but 13 years ago level.
And I feel like, for me personally, I think this is one of my all-time favorite long shots. I mean, I think there's
Other
a
than
couple...
Birdman as a whole.
Yeah. There are some great tracking shots out there, but the one that really sticks out to me is this tracking shot, because it is just... Not only is it beautiful, but it is insanely impressive.
It's so impressive. There is so much happening in this shot. And you can tell this isn't just like they got it, but there was like, I don't know, some issue, but every extra did what they were supposed to do, so they just kept it. Like, this is perfectly executed.
Yeah.
I mean, it was my first time watching it, so I wasn't necessarily nitpicking it, but I mean, it was flawless.
Yeah. The
Really,
interesting thing about
no
this,
issues.
yeah, this shot, they were originally going to shoot this as a montage. They had no intention of doing it as one long take. But then when they were there and they had all the extras there, and they had a single day to shoot all of this, they realized that they couldn't do it as a montage. It was going to take way too long to individually
Right.
set up the shot. So he was like, we're going to do this in one take. And everyone was like, what? But I guess they rehearsed from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. They had like 12 hours of rehearsal, and then they just did it. And it is incredible.
Yeah, still best shot of the film, best scene of the film, I guess.
Yeah.
Super impressive.
Yeah. I figured you were going to choose that as your standout scene, so I chose another one.
I mean, okay.
So this I didn't even realize this sequence had any importance the first time I watched the film, and you probably didn't either. But when I was rewatching it, I realized that they throw a giant hint that Robbie dies. And it's actually blatantly obvious when you watch it a second time. So basically, right when Robbie goes to sleep under that kind of dock area when he's
and it
waiting,
rewinds.
Yeah, it replays basically the entire film from his perspective, which is, we're assuming that that's basically now his brain, his life flashing before his eyes, as people say happens right before you die. So we have that sequence occur, and then it follows with a shot of him walking off into this poppy field. And it has like old film grain on it, and it's this beautiful shot of him walking off into a poppy field, and the music just cuts out completely, and it's just silent as he walks off, like out of focus. And I mean, that to me is just clearly, blatantly the filmmakers telling you this, because that's when he died in real life. And then it goes on.
To be honest, I guess when I was watching that shot, I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking maybe it was like going to be a montage of him at war, because it was kind of playing like a montage of clips of him and Keira Knightley's character. But then it just kind of cuts to Bryony, and I guess I didn't really think about it too much, but now that you say that, I totally see that.
So that actually got me, because I never realized that the first time, and I don't know, it really hit me. And well, not only was it just beautifully edited, but it was just, I don't know, it was symbolic, it was poetic, it was metaphorical, it worked as this sequence of shots. So that's the other part I picked. But
nice.
I mean, I think we should just get into the review.
Me too. Let's just hop right into this thing. First, do you want to take a quick break?
Yeah, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to hop into story and originality.
All right.
And we're back.
We are back. Time to hop right into the review. Let's hop into story and originality, which is out of 10%. I like the story that this film has. Now, let me just state right off the bat, I'm not normally a huge romance kind of guy. I don't know. I just think that a lot of romance films kind of just are boring and long, and I feel like would be better as a TV show. But, this is not just your typical romance. It's also, a war film. You see some horrific stuff.
The thing about this film is, even though it's classified as romance, I don't think there's a whole lot of romance. Like, it feels like sad. This is more Bryony's story.
Yeah, I agree.
It feels like it's more Bryony's story, and then that's kind of just like a B story that's also
Yeah.
important, but it
Well,
really
it's-
the
they're
only
pretty
romantic
intertwined.
moments. Yeah, but I feel like the only romantic moments are really the first like 30 minutes of the film,
Mhm.
and then it kind of
And then when
that's
she
kind of
meets
it.
him at the bus, kind of thing. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
pretty much it.
Mhm.
Uh,
But
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, another thing aside from just kind of not being your typical romance film that this story does really well is just the way that it uses time as a concept. Um, I mean, not only does it end with a huge jump to the future, um,
Mhm.
but also just as you're watching this, you get to see things from multiple perspectives quite a few times. So I
Yeah.
guess like the first example of that is when Bryony sees Robbie, like the fountain scene. You see it from
Yeah.
Bryony's perspective, and then you see it from Robbie's perspective. And this
Yeah.
is like a repeated thing throughout the whole film, and I just think it's really
Yeah.
creative, and they do it really well.
Yeah, yeah, it's not the most original. Like lots of filmmakers have done this.
Oh yeah, but
But
it's a nice touch.
it's cool when anyone ever does that because it works for this film,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a really interesting way of telling the first act. And I think that's why the first act of this film might not be the most entertaining part, but I feel like it is the overall strongest, as I think like the first act as a whole could be a 40-minute film, it kind of
Yeah.
yes, we go on, but once we skip to 4 years later, we're in the back half, and that front portion of that film,
Yeah.
it's strong, it's really strong, and it's really well written.
Yeah, I also just love the way how, at first you're hit with all this different information, and then, there's this pause when the war happens. You're kind of left on this cliffhanger when Robbie is arrested, because that kind of
Mhm.
concludes the first act. And then, you have to sit through all this war stuff, and then slowly, you reveal the events of the past and how it actually went down. And I just think
Yeah.
it does this really well because, it's not like they're just gonna tell you what happened. They slowly reveal things, way too far in the future. That it was actually Benedict Cumberbatch's character who committed the crime.
Did you see that coming? That's the other one I was wondering.
Yeah, I did see that coming for sure.
Yeah?
I knew right. Of course, like I know instantly that Robbie isn't.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah,
Guilty,
but like,
obviously.
did you think it was Benedict Cumberbatch? Because
Yeah, I thought it was Benedict Cumberbatch's character because
Mhm.
I was like, who else? It's
Yeah.
literally either him
That's
or
true.
what's his name? The guy he
brother.
comes in with. But just
Yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch was the one who actually had a character. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, it's gonna be him.
Because the first time when I was going to rewatch this, I thought for some reason that they showed his face the first time we see that.
No, they only showed the.
And they
second time.
don't. They don't. But for some reason, I thought they did, and that's why it made her saying that it was Robbie even more messed up. But then I realized,
No,
oh, wait,
she just
no.
makes a mistake.
It's being naive.
It's being
a
naive,
child.
but I mean, also, if you see it from her perspective, which is also, the perspective of a child, which is
Mhm.
actually pretty much the major theme in this film, is don't trust kids. That I guess that's like one of my issues overall with the story is, I don't know, I don't like some of the other films we've reviewed have had really strong messages and themes. This film doesn't really. It's just kind of, I don't know, don't believe what you hear kind of thing. And yeah,
I think this film is a lot about truth and honesty.
Yeah,
It's
it's
yeah.
there are prevalent themes, but I just think it's not as strong as, say, I don't know, a Parasite or
Yeah.
Place Beyond the Pines or even a Brazil, about society.
Yeah.
Which this film doesn't have to be. After all, it is a
No.
romance. But just kind of comparing and contrasting to other things.
Okay, sure. I think that the story, I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's the most original
I
stories I've seen. I mean, yes, the ending is original, and there are elements to the film that are original, but I think mostly when we're looking at the actual love story in this film, it's much what we've seen a million times before.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that compared to a lot of other films out there that are similar in this regards, it is a bit more original, but I still don't think it's the most original film I've ever seen. But yeah, I think that the story drives this film. And the other thing is that when we're looking at this, we also have to realize that this is a adaptation of a novel. So when we're judging the story, we're kind of judging the book more than the movie, because
I've never
I'm assuming
read the book.
I'm assuming this is fairly similar to the book, because
it's like
if the author had rights to the film,
I read the plot synopsis of the book. It's literally the same. It's the same thing.
So, I mean, as a director or a writer, that's going to be harder to, even if you want to change parts because you feel like it would be better off this way, you can't really do that. So, I mean, that's the hard part of any adapted screenplay, but I still think the story is okay. I think a lot of my problems are more in the screenplay section, and that's when I'm going to dive into it. But for the most part, I think it's okay. What was your grade?
I gave it an 8%.
Okay.
And honestly, the reason it kind of, originally when I was watching this, I was like, it's maybe a bit lower. But then I kind of realized this is like the most, this is probably the best romance story movie I can really think of, kind of. It's definitely up there for me.
What about Her?
Oh, okay. Like, I'm not saying it's the best. I'm just saying it's way better than your average romance flick. So that's kind of why I gave it more points here.
Romance.
Yeah. I think it loses points in originality for me, and I agree with you. A lot of my problems come in the screenplay. So
I gave it a 7%. Pretty close. I was gonna give it an 8, but then I was like, I think I'm being too nice. But I could see myself giving an 8, but it's like a high 7%.
Yeah. Low 8 for me.
Okay.
All right, let's move into the
beginning.
So
when I didn't think, whenever I think beginning again, I think like first 10 minutes ish.
Yeah, same.
I didn't think it was that great.
I didn't think it was very good at all. If I'm gonna be honest.
I mean, the beginning, it sets up the characters well. That's what it does. It sets up our characters well.
Yeah.
It has a very, very cool soundtrack, and I mean, this soundtrack is very cool in my opinion.
The soundtrack is amazing in this film. Talk about that later.
Yeah, cinematography is good, but other than that, there's nothing super compelling about the beginning. It's solid in just setting up the rest of the film, but not a lot to talk about for the beginning of this film.
But yeah, cinematography is good, score's good. I gave it a 3%. It's not necessarily anything majorly wrong with it. It's just not that great. It's pretty average.
It's a beginning to set up the rest of the film. Yeah. Not much else, really.
So they're not really trying 3%. To innovate. The opening shot's actually pretty cool with the miniature house.
Oh yeah, that was cool. And then
it's like an establishing shot. To her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to the ending.
Okay.
I wrote that I kind of saw it coming, but it's still a cool twist. That's, my main note. I respect the twist.
I do too. And I was going to give this a 4%. I was about to write that down. But then the last 30 seconds of the film, and it boosted it up to a 5.
Really?
Because I don't know, that the last we had that last 30
Dude, they
seconds of them
cheated.
on
They
the
used
beach.
the White Cliffs of Dover. How are you supposed to? How could you not make that shot beautiful? I'm sorry, it's
But
impossible.
it's not about it's not about that. It's about,
It's just
they
sad.
used the final shot of the film is the picture that we see throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And that was awesome
That's where I
to me. Like, I was like, wow. And I totally forgot about that ending. And I also, even though they end it with that plot twist and they're like, this is what happened, then it ends. And then it's just this 30 seconds of like, you don't hear the waves crashing. It's just the music. And it's just them on this beach. And it can be interpreted in many different ways. And I've seen and read people's interpretations of this. Mine personally is that it's just that it's what could have been. It's like
exactly. It's
Bryony
what could have been.
Thinking what could have been. But
Yeah.
I've read people think that it's the afterlife, that there's a lot of different interpretations.
I mean, in theory, it could have been like them before he went to war or something. I don't know.
Yeah. But
Whatever.
I thought it was beautiful.
It's just beautiful. Made me cry. Yeah.
And I
So
don't know.
5%
I think
from
the
you.
plot twist was 5% for me.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it a 4%, and I mean, really, the only thing is that I don't know. Like, the twist is cool, but I think it's more of like it's closer to like almost like an epilogue than a twist. Like, yes, you get the
That's
twist
true.
that they died. That's like the main twist. But then, it's just kind of like some narration on what actually happened. And I just think it's a less strong twist than, something like Brazil where it like hard cuts and it's like, yeah, he was insane, lol.
But
this was...
the twist in Brazil, I thought, was more predictable because it wasn't really a twist. It was like
it's not a twist, but I'm just saying, I guess, just the way they, say something's fake almost.
Yeah, sure. Without voiceover.
I don't know. I just think it wasn't necessarily the best ending, but I did cry. I'm an easy crier, so...
Yeah, no, I was going to give it a 4%. It was just that last 30 seconds that boosted it up for me. It's a low 5, but...
Yeah, I could have given it a 5, but I'm sticking with my 4.
Yeah, fair enough.
Pretty close. All right, let's move on to screenplay/dialogue out of 8%.
Okay. So this is when I'm going to get into more of the nitty-gritty of the screenplay.
Yeah.
My biggest issue with this film is, once again, the love story, but it's not that it's unoriginal. It's the problem that this romance has, and that a lot of romantic films suffer from. And that is a underdeveloped love story.
I totally agree. Thank you so much. I thought I might have been alone on this, but... Yeah.
No. This has happened since Romeo and Juliet, okay? This isn't anything
Okay,
new.
whoa. Let's not get crazy here, all right?
Okay, dude, Romeo and Juliet is like over the course of 3 days.
Okay, yeah,
They
but
killed
Romeo and Juliet's
themselves.
an interesting play. Like, come on. Don't bring that into this.
Okay, whatever. I'm going to talk about Titanic then.
Sure.
Titanic is a great example of an underdeveloped
Titanic
love
is
story.
way too long. Titanic is an example of a film that does not need to be over 3 hours.
I don't like the Titanic, and I'm just going to say that, and a lot of people are going to get mad at me. And I know it won Best Picture. I don't like that movie.
You're not alone.
It's not good. Yes, it's an achievement technically speaking, sure.
Whatever.
But
who cares?
The rest, like
film
the
students say
writing,
it's boring.
the writing, the acting,
like, come on,
it's
Leo.
just not good.
Yeah.
Yes, it should have won every technical award at the Oscars. No, it should not have won Best Picture.
No, I agree. But within this film...
Yeah. Tangent.
Let's bring it back.
Yeah, but this film does that too. It's an underdeveloped love story, and the fact that we're getting to... Yes, we're assuming that they already had something before this film starts, but it just feels too quick. It feels way too quick.
Yeah, I mean, she gets this horrific letter almost. This very overly sexual letter, and then she just kind of blows it off, and she's like, oh, so you love me, lol. Like, I don't know. I just feel like the fact that this film is trying to do this kind of two perspectives thing in the first act, where it's what Bryony is perceiving from their love, and also just, you know, them actually, you know, their love story. I just feel like it doesn't give them enough time to develop the actual love story. So I just wasn't really that invested in it. There wasn't enough time to flesh out the characters.
And this film, it's 2 hours, but it's like 150 if you
credits are long.
If you don't include credits. Yeah. So I really think this film could have totally added 10, even 20 minutes.
I agree.
Of just developing this relationship way
and
more.
They could have even taken that out in other places too, like the nursery part or something.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think about it, that ending, even though the ending is already hits hard, but I feel like right now the ending only hits hard because we care about the characters. The ending doesn't hit as hard because we don't really, like, we care about the relationship because we care about. Yeah, me too.
Robbie is just this sad man. His story is so sad. But, you know, Keira Knightley, it's like, why do I care about her? She's just kind of like...
Well, that's my other thing about this film is, I get that it's kind of supposed to be more about Bryony, but if you're going to do all this character development about James McAvoy, then you got to reverse it and do it about Keira Knightley, and they don't do that.
Yep.
Right? We have a 30-minute sequence that's completely in developing Robbie's character, and then we just kind of forgot about Cecilia, and I'm like...
Cecilia just kind of, I guess, gets... It's almost like they don't even really focus on what happened to her after he gets arrested, because there had to be some... You know, she literally moves to a one-bedroom apartment in London, which is, you know, pretty untypical of that kind of character. And you kind of just assume that, you know, she gets kicked out because she loves the guy that they all think is a rapist.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we see that scene? That would have been an intense scene.
Yeah.
But no, now she's just kind of there.
Yeah. And I think, yes, the ending is sad, but it would have hit so much harder if we had character development on both of them. And we had a more developed relationship. All of a sudden, that ending goes from, you know, good
5 to 6%.
Freaking like we'd have to give it an extra point.
If I'm weeping and need tissues, you get a 6. That's new rule imposed by Ben. Hasn't happened yet, but maybe if we get like Manchester by the Sea or something.
Ooh, that's on the wheel.
Oh, it is?
It's on the wheel.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay. Focus. I gave this a 4%.
Yeah.
The only thing saving it is I actually really like the dialogue. I think the dialogue is really good, and the pacing is actually it's okay, but like, they don't spend enough time on the important stuff, and they spend too much time on the wrong stuff. Like Bryony. I think if they just made this less about Bryony. But then, you know, the whole story flops, so I really don't know what they could have done.
And Bryony's stuff wasn't that interesting, especially when she's older.
Also, I watched this film with no subtitles, so the entire intimate scene with her and the soldier, I just didn't understand anything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Okay,
I mean, I guess
that whole
I think
soldier
he dies,
scene
right?
could have been cut.
Did he die?
It's basically he has brain, like, he's got that, well, obviously he's been shot in the head, so he has a brain injury, and he thinks that she's his girlfriend, so he's talking about how they're gonna go get married, and how his parents want them to get married, and all of that stuff. But honestly, I think that scene could have been cut.
It didn't really do anything for her development. I mean...
Yeah, no.
It just kind of showed sadness of war, which you kind of already get, so...
From seeing them all with their battle wounds and stuff.
Yeah. 4%.
Yeah,
4%.
I was going to give it a 4% as well, but then I realized I kind of have to split evenly, screenplay, dialogue, 4 and 4. And I was like, the screenplay isn't that bad.
Right.
So I gave it a 5%.
I mean, I guess I don't really... I think that they're so closely intertwined, I feel like it's not necessarily a 50-50 split. But I agree, the screenplay is not a 0. The pacing is actually
Yeah.
decent considering
Mm-hmm.
how
Especially
underdeveloped
like
it is.
the well, all of Robbie's stuff is fantastic, and
Yeah.
I do like certain elements, but it just yeah, it's underdeveloped in
Mm-hmm.
many different aspects, whether it's Keira Knightley's character or just Robbie and Cecilia's relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
It just needed a few more scenes.
yeah.
Like
I agree.
when I think romance films, like there's a lot of films that do this. I talked about Titanic, but there are a lot of films that do this. But then there's also a lot of films that may be classified as sappy romantic films, like
But they
The
develop
Notebook,
the
for example.
characters.
But they developed like The Notebook. Yes, people call it sappy and whatever. But The Notebook is actually really well written when it comes to developing that relationship and seeing them through all the way to old age and when they're in the old age home and everything. So you can do it properly.
Even if
But-
your film sucks, you can still develop your characters.
Yeah.
And this is like the opposite. Your film's amazing, technically,
Mm-hmm.
but you just forgot to develop the love story.
Yeah.
Let's move on to possibly the strongest element of the film. Okay, not the strongest, but it's up there.
I think it's the second to strongest.
Yeah, the soundtrack. There's a reason this won an Oscar for the soundtrack. This score is so
Yeah.
beautiful. If we're talking specifics, I have to say, right after she watches the soldier, like the French soldier, pass out or die, I couldn't really tell because I couldn't understand the French. That song right there, oh, it hits so hard. And yeah, the ending song too. This soundtrack is just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like incorporate typewriter sounds as the percussion for like, the whole thing.
Exactly.
So creative, so good.
So creative. And
they use like
I realized
footsteps
something.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. But I realized something the second time I watched this. The typewriter sound effect they use in the soundtrack, dude, it's a metaphor. It's like a motif or something.
Yeah, for her writing the story.
No. Every time we hear the typewriter sound effect, it is brain. It's meant to symbolize someone's brain working, whether that's imagining, whether that's trying to think up a story to tell, a lie to tell, whatever. We hear the typewriter sound effect. So we hear it at the beginning when she's writing her play, because obviously your brainwaves are working when you're writing, when you're
Right.
being creative writing a play. But then we hear it again when she first sees Lola being raped, because she's thinking it's Robbie. We also hear it when she's looking out the window and seeing Cecilia and Robbie together by the fountain. And then you don't hear it through Robbie's sequence. And then it comes back again when she sees Benedict Cumberbatch marrying Lola and she realizes that he was the one who raped her. So they use this sound effect not only because it's cool, but they use it for a reason. And,
Yeah.
I mean, that's genius.
I mean, to be honest, I think I can just give the soundtrack a 7% and we can almost just move on. I mean, this thing is just masterful.
Okay, wait. I've always said that I can only give it a 7% if I listen to it.
Okay, the problem with
without
that
the film
is that I wouldn't listen to it because it's a score and I don't listen to classical music. So I can't apply
But
that.
I've listened to scores.
I have not listened to scores.
Like, I listened to The Place Beyond the Pines.
That's like a mix, though. There's some songs.
Yeah,
in
that's
there. This is
true.
purely orchestral. And I realized that I gave like Parasite a 7%, which I should not have done. Parasite I was way too nice on, guys. In retrospect, but this deserves it. I mean, come on.
Okay, you know what? I'll give it a 6.5. I feel like that's
A point?
That's fair.
Can we do that?
6.5. Sure, why not?
This is the only soundtrack we've done that even got an Oscar nom. Wait, no. Did Parasite get an Oscar nom? Maybe. I don't know. But this soundtrack is really beautiful.
It's very creative. Oh, the other thing about the soundtrack I talked about a little bit, but that scene, the long take when the choir is singing and they harmonize the soundtrack to the choir singing.
Come on,
that
7%.
is brilliant. Oh,
7.
Oh, you know what? Fine, 7%. To be
Just
fair,
for the harmonization.
To be fair, I think the long take sequence and the final song, there is a chance I could listen to that one day. It's possible. I could see myself. It's not like a score that. Okay, you know what? Yeah, I'll just give it that 7%. I'll raise it up by 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you've seen this film, I think you'd probably agree with us.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there's nothing wrong with it either. It's not like there's a bad song in there. It's consistently really great.
It really is.
Yeah, let's move on to production design. Costumes and set design. For this, it's more costumes and set design.
And the costumes by
costumes
themselves
alone
these
great.
are some of these are fantastic costumes. And they're not like super flamboyant or anything where you're like, you watch a film and you're like, this is going to win best costume design.
It's just solid.
There's something about every single costume in this film that's just fantastic.
Yeah. And the set decoration is amazing. But, okay, here's the thing. I always feel like movies set in, like, World War II era just kind of cheat production design because it looks so cool to us that they just, like, match the time period. But, I mean, the more I think about it, the more I realize that with the high-budget Hollywood film, that's not even that hard.
That's true.
Like for Inglourious Bastards, I gave it a 6 out of 6 because I was like, oh, the set design's amazing. And obviously, well, with that one, they built the theater and stuff.
Oh,
but,
that's true.
Like, looking at this one, I was like, yes, the set design is really, really great. But at the end of the day, it kind of has to be. It needs to be. Otherwise, you just get taken out of the experience. So I feel like with these films, that's a major portion of that's like a priority for them.
Yeah. And also the whole garden, like the garden they have at that house and how that arc of roses and stuff.
They only used that once, but it was so beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this was location, but that lake where she jumps in to get him to save her from drowning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was location. It looked like a set though.
I don't know.
Especially that she's jumping in water. Yeah, but you would think if she's jumping in water and stuff, they would have a heated pool.
I think they filmed this in summer. I don't know. They filmed it in England, so I don't know what the water's like there. Probably pretty cold, actually. Yeah. I think I'm giving it a 5%. The only reason I didn't give it full marks is because they didn't build. They didn't really build many sets, and I feel like to get a 6 out of 6 production design, you gotta be building some stuff. 5 out of 6.
I agree. I gave it a 5% too, but I was thinking it was a 6%, but I ended up with 5. It's very close, though. This is really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the first act.
Yeah,
the production design is fantastic.
All right, now let's talk about the location selection. Once again, easy breezy. To give it anything less than full marks would be a crime. I mean, come on. When you bust out the White Cliffs of Dover, you're gonna get a 6%. I'm sorry, but it's literally impossible to make them look not cinematic and beautiful. You could film it on like a Nokia flip phone and I'd still be like, damn, that looks so good.
Yeah.
A lot of the reason the cinematography for this film is so strong is because of the locations. they're doing the cinematography loads of favors by just giving them these beautiful landscapes. They didn't have to do too much to make those shots beautiful. I mean, yeah, I'm just gonna. There's not much I can even say.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just the Robbie sequence, every single landscape, location, that scene where he comes across all the nuns and schoolgirls massacred on that field, and the camera slowly backs off up to see the sunrise in the background in that foggy field with the trees overhanging.
Ooh, the mist.
Oh, that shot when we switch to wartime, and it's
him in the house silhouette.
I guess it's on a track. Yeah, it goes through the house,
so
and he's
good.
in the silhouette with the pink sky in the background with all the fog across the field. I mean, this is also cinematography, but the location selection is vital for how beautiful this film is too. And, man, yeah, 6%.
6%. I just don't even want to dwell on it too long. We'd be gushing for hours. I mean...
Yeah.
When you hit 6% that quickly, there's just not much to say. It's just immaculate. And the house, the mansion, counts as a location too. So,
oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's just easy. Let's take a quick break before we get on to the back half of the review. And then we'll be coming at you with cinematography.
Okay, we're getting into the back half of the review.
Stuff.
Heading into cinematography.
Yeah, cinematography. Wow. Okay. This is the only 10 in cinematography I've given so far was Parasite. Totally undeserved. I'm sorry.
I haven't.
Okay, actually, I don't want to say
given
undeserved because Parasite,
yet.
I really love the cinematography in Parasite. But just when...
I give Parasite an 8%.
When you compare Parasite to something like this, it's just pales in comparison.
They use lighting. They use lighting to their advantage. They use lighting super well.
Film. Now, I'm not gonna lie. The framing is a little tiny bit. It's pretty basic when they're not, outside. But it doesn't have to be crazy. I mean, it still looks great.
That shot where he goes into that, where they're playing that film?
Yes. Oh, I love that shot.
They're playing that movie, and he's standing there in the corner as a silhouette, looking down. And then they replay it, but the movie's like his own film. Like, his life is playing on the movie screen.
If I freeze framed him silhouetted while, like, the actors of the French film are making out, that's like an art piece right there. Boom. Art piece. Him silhouetted with the huge field in the background. Art piece. Lucas texted me when he watched this, and he said every frame is like a painting. And I was like, okay, I'm pretty hyped. Let's get into this. I watch it. I totally agree. Like, this literally takes that saying and it puts it into facts. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is, without a doubt, the most beautiful film we have watched so far, and cinematography wise.
I don't want to make the bold ass claim that is the most beautiful film I've ever seen. For a film nerd like me, that almost bumped the entertainment value up to like an 11% just because I was so captivated by the shots. I'm not true. When I was looking at the war sequence, I was like not really paying attention to anything except the shots. I was literally being entertained by how beautiful it was, which, counts something.
Yeah.
But
totally.
From a film student perspective, which is what we're giving you here, this is some inspiring stuff. So, I have to give it 10%. The only thing that annoys me is that the blown out highlights in the first act to like give it that age look.
Yeah, I agree, but then I put that in editing. I was gonna take down cinematography, but I was like, that's editing.
I understand why they did it.
No.
I just hate the look of blown out highlights. So
yeah.
That's like the only thing that annoyed
me too.
me. But I get if that's not even cinematography, whatever, 10%. Beautiful.
There's so many beautiful shots in this film. And yes, I could nitpick if I really wanted to, but it's not worth it.
It's just gonna be a 10% no matter how hard you nitpick.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is when I was looking at this film, every single prop piece, set piece, is placed perfectly to get the best shot. Like, the contrast, we get this scene where all the kids are in the house together and there's just chaos. There's stuff all over the place, lots of background noise, and then we cut to Robbie in his little dingy room, and there's nothing. It's just him in a bathtub, like, off into the corner of the frame, and there's just nothing. And that was genius to me. Also, they shot this film in 16:9, so they didn't even cheat with widescreen.
I noticed that too. I was like,
widescreen.
Hold up, this isn't even 2:35:1. This is something you film, like, if Lucas and I go out on our black magic and just, shoot a random shot and import it, that's what it is, 16:9. That's just automatic.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
And sometimes, I mean, if we're looking at The Place Beyond the Pines, I mean, it's still a really nice film, but it is somewhat cheated that they filmed it
widescreen and the color palette.
And the color palette. But this film does not cheat at all.
It makes it harder for itself.
It has a super original
color palette, bro. Like, think about Suicide Squad.
They have a super original, crazy color palette, and they shot it 16:9, and I feel like 16:9 actually amps this film up because they're able to use every bit of the frame and just show off everything.
When you take like a landscape shot, widescreen, sure, you get more width, but you don't get that height. This film gets that height.
Yeah.
You get to see the sky.
Yeah, and you get that. They have lots of sunsets and sunrises.
Oh my God. I could talk about this all day. My God.
Oh, and I love my shallow depth of field. Any film that has a super shallow depth of field is going to be high up there. That's just
standard, though.
Yeah, this is 10%. It is a 10%.
This is memorably beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Editing. Moving into editing, I also think that this film is extremely well edited, cutting wise.
Yeah, I thought they used cuts pretty well.
This film is fantastic. The sequence where Robbie realizes he gave the wrong letter to Bryony, and it cuts to another thing is they cut this film to the tempo of either a typewriter or there's just or music. So that's really cool. But it cuts to the tempo of the typewriter. Once again, the typewriter comes in as he's rethinking if he gave her the right letter. It cuts to the beat. We see the wrong letter on the table as it's parallel editing with Bryony running through the forest with the letter, and it does that like cool pan shot of his face, and then he like yells her name. But that 1 minute sequence is edited perfectly. Perfectly.
I guess I agree that the editing is super technically sound, and the pacing of the scenes are pretty good. But to me, it's just not necessarily that special in terms of editing. There wasn't many scenes where there's a couple scenes that stand out to me that are edited really well, but I just think overall I wasn't really wowed by many sequences. I just think it was super edited solidly throughout the whole thing, but I don't really think it gets a super high score just because I wasn't amazed by the editing. Honestly, the strongest aspect is the color grade. I thought the color grade on this film was sick. I love that they just stuck with that bold green. That is so hard to pull off. And yes, that's cinematography too, but how many other films can just have green as like the have a happy green, have a slimy green, but make it all look beautiful. I literally I couldn't name another one. They all fail. Suicide Squad?
No. The only reason I got cut back on editing here is because they chose to use CGI lens flares a couple times.
What? I noticed that I think only once, but
Like when she walks
Yeah,
into the
yeah.
library and sees Cecilia and Robbie, and there's a light on the table that they're trying
exactly
to
what
keep
I
our
noticed.
focus on that light. They put like a special effect aura
Yeah, I was
lens
like,
flare.
is this about to turn fantasy? Like, what the hell's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And it worked though. Like, I didn't
It
notice
didn't. It
Robbie and
it didn't work for me because I was thinking, okay, but the light is far away from the camera. The camera isn't even pointed at the light. And yet and it's not even out of focus. And yet we're getting a lens flare. It didn't make sense. And it pulled me out of the film. I was like, why did they make that decision? And there's also a couple times at the start of the film that there's characters. First they've blown up the exposure, which I get they're doing that to show the contrast. It's a little distracting. Not
it's
overly
only
distracting, but there are
to
moments
a
where it's a little
film
distracting.
student/film nerd. Maybe.
But overall, I think this film is extremely well cut, and just the fact that most of this film is edited on tempo with either a typewriter or the soundtrack is an achievement by itself. I'm not going to give it full marks, but I'm going to give it a 7 out of 8%.
I'm giving it a 6%. I guess I just thought it was less impressive. Like, I don't know. I just kind of thought that it was really technically solid, but there wasn't necessarily anything that was wowing me about it. But 6% still pretty strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing about editing is the Foley work.
The Foley work is
fantastic
really
in this
nice.
film. That was the other thing.
Yeah. Let's move on to acting. Out of 10%. I thought I give it pretty I actually like the performances in this thing.
Yeah. They're fine.
Man,
I thought that James
McAvoy gave a really good performance.
Great. And he's a fantastic actor, as we've seen in Split. I mean, this man can act. But, yeah, I think he gives the strongest performance.
I thought Keira Knightley was actually really strong as well. I liked her performance a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, her character wasn't that fleshed out, but I don't know. I just really liked her performance.
Yeah. I feel like she wasn't doing anything that great, though. Like, it felt like just...
I think she just played the character that she was given.
given.
As good as she could have.
Yeah. I mean, I think the character is written somewhat... It works with her, and the director had already worked with Keira Knightley on Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah,
so.
And Saoirse Ronan, I'm giving her hella credit because she almost did a good performance, like in my opinion, as a child actor. Probably one of the best child actor performances, honestly. To get nominated for an Oscar,
I mean, she was 11
and
got nominated. Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. Is that a record?
I think Shirley Temple has the
Shirley
record.
Temple. Goddamn.
But she was good. And I don't think, like, you're saying you're kind of annoyed by her, but I feel like that's the character.
Yeah, and
like, you're supposed to kind of be annoyed with this girl.
I just think overall, especially Lola, her actor, I thought was pretty bad.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, Benedict Cumberbatch, I didn't like his performance that much.
I don't know. I digged Benedict Cumberbatch's performance, especially that scene where he's talking to Lola in that room with the twins. Maybe it was because second watch and I knew what he was going to do. But
True.
It was
and
weird.
Creepy.
It was creepy. His performance is creepy, and yet it's not so creepy that on first watch you're gonna be immediately creeped out.
That's true.
You know?
I guess the only thing that creeped me out is
it's-
when he's like, you have to bite it, like bite down. I was like, whoa, what
Yeah,
the hell?
yeah, exactly.
Why?
But he's stylish and smart,
And a predator.
but he's got this just there's something that he shows through his performance, and I actually like his performance. He's not in a lot of this movie. He has only like 2 or 3 scenes.
I thought he was
what he does
meh.
is decent.
I'm just kind of considering the fact that I really like him in almost everything else he's been in, that this was just kind of on the weaker end of his performances. I also really didn't like the actor who played Bryony. I as a 18-year-old nurse. I just
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
all
me
of
too.
the acting in the nurse section was pretty weak. Like pretty much just every
Yeah.
character sucked.
The nurse section was just I feel like you could have cut most of that and given Keira Knightley some more
Yeah.
character
And
development.
James
And that would
McAvoy's
have upped this film.
supporting soldier friend just wasn't that believable. He like wasn't even that.
I thought he was
He was okay. He
yeah.
just wasn't
He was
very
okay.
sad when he died. And I guess he's he's a very
But I think he also realized
he's a minor role. Like he's a very minor role. But I just
Yeah.
I thought they could have cast a better buddy and had a better aesthetic there. What are you feeling? I gave it a 7%.
I also gave it a 7%.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, I maybe I'm ripping on it too much. It's pretty good. And also James McAvoy's final monologue in that scene where
that nice spit.
Bryony goes to their house. Yeah, and he's like he just lets her have it. I mean that
was probably the best
just a
acted
hint
scene
of what
in
we're
the
gonna
whole
get.
thing.
Yeah, it was.
Enough tangenting. Let's bring it back to entertainment value.
7%.
For entertainment value, now it plays a little bit slow, but overall I think the pacing is actually pretty solid in this film. Yes, the screenplay is weak on the development, but I didn't necessarily find that much boring. Even the nursing part, yes, I thought it was acted poorly and didn't really need to be there, but it was still decently entertaining. It wasn't like a boring go on my phone section, and it's not like I'm gonna skip it if I ever watch it again. And honestly, just the cinematography alone, like I was saying, was keeping me so into it, just because I was so awestruck by especially the war sequence. Act 2, stereotypically boring act.
No, I think Act 2 is the best act.
Act 2 is the best act in this film,
or the most entertaining.
Yeah. And the ending kind of keeps you invested because you want to know what's going to happen, how it's going to end up. Honestly, I think that the beginning has the least entertainment value, at least. And honestly, especially, I feel like on a second watch, when you understand that you're never going to see any of these characters again, and it's just a setup for what's about to happen, even though it's a strong setup, just watching that 40 minutes knowing what's going to happen, I feel like would make it a bit slow to rewatch. But at the end of the day, if I'm rewatching this thing, I'm like solely just watching what's happening on screen. Like, if I wasn't taking notes for this review right now, I probably would have ignored many bits of dialogue just because I was like looking at the shot. Unfortunately, I had to pay attention to it all. But I thought it was decently entertaining, especially for a romance, because normally romances I find are pretty boring.
I mean, we were talking about this a little bit, but I was thinking, because this is based off a novel, and as you were saying, the synopsis of the novel and the movie are practically the same. So obviously Joe Wright didn't have the ability to change that much in this film, which isn't awful, but the one thing that I feel like this film does that a lot of movie adaptations do is it feels like too much is happening in too little time.
Yeah.
But that ups the entertainment ever so slightly.
That's true.
Because that means that more stuff is happening in less amount of time. That might not be great for the screenplay, but entertainment value is fantastic. I know a lot of people take movie adaptations very seriously, especially people who have read the book. People are like, they always compare it to the novel. They're always, a good example is Harry Potter, because that is one of the biggest people have seen the Harry Potter movies and read the
I'm
Harry
going
Potter
on
books.
record saying I'm
And-
not a Harry Potter fan at all. I'm a Lord of the Rings guy.
Okay, Lord of the Rings is one too, but I feel like most people haven't read the Lord of the Rings
I've read
novels
them.
and they've seen the movies.
The movies are boring.
At least I've only read the first book. Yeah. But Harry Potter is a good example because people always compare the book and the movie, and they're like, the movie was fine, but it didn't do this. It didn't
Right.
have this part. It didn't. And my biggest thing about film adaptations is, who cares about the book? Who cares? Focus on the movie. This is a completely different medium. A film is not able to tackle everything a book can tackle. Read the book, enjoy the book, watch the movie, enjoy the movie. If you want to critique the film on film elements, do that. But don't critique the film because it didn't have your favorite scene in
some
the
stuff
book.
in Harry Potter
Don't-
too is
don't-
like almost virtually impossible to film realistically.
Yeah.
Like Quidditch, bro. How do they even? I don't know. There's technical limitations when you're adapting a book.
Yeah, but that's the biggest thing for me. And there are some fantastic film adaptations. And the important thing for me is when a movie is adapting a book, it has to stand by itself. I think Atonement does it decently, but I do feel there are moments where I feel like too much is happening too quickly. It could have been slowed down. Some extra scenes could have been added. And I was trying to think about an example of a film that does this well. We Need to Talk About Kevin is the one that I came up with, which is a little indie film that adapted a novel.
Wait, that's an adapted screenplay? Oh,
yeah.
wow. I didn't know that.
But that film doesn't... It's a completely different thing. It's the movie. It is... You can watch that movie alone. It doesn't feel like it was a book.
I had no idea it was
it's
a book.
Focusing on the core values of that film and the core
message.
everything that is
Yeah.
important in that film, and it is extremely impressive. And I feel like this film wasn't perfect, but it did a pretty good job, and it stayed fairly entertaining. I think the first 20 minutes are kind of boring. I think that the all the nursing stuff isn't that great until she goes to Robbie and Cecilia's house. But other than that, I thought it was okay. It was pretty fun, especially that was my second watch and I still was relatively entertained. I gave it a 7 out of 10%.
Yeah, I gave it an 8%. I know I was talking about how I could see this getting boring on a second watch, but on the first watch, it kept me enthralled the whole time. It wasn't anything crazy, but, my attention was there the whole time.
Yeah.
It kept me entertained. 8%.
Yeah.
Could see how it could lose value, though.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to overall technical achievement.
This film is pretty...
Yeah, this film is very strong technically, I think.
This is fantastic.
The editing, I didn't give the editing a 7% or full marks,
Yeah.
but that's not to say that the editing is not good. I just think that it's not really impressive
Perfect.
on its own necessarily. But when you pair
Right.
the editing with the
Sure.
cinematography, I mean, overall technical achievement for me is very high. This
Yeah,
is
me
one of
too.
those films that I would watch again, literally on mute, just to watch it. Like this film is so strong technically. I think they could have made it a silent film with subtitles, and I would still be impressed. Even though the sound work too is incredible. Like, just there's nothing weak, nothing that distracting about these elements at all. And the cinematography is just so beautiful. I really don't know what else to say. There's just nothing I can really take away from this film in terms of overall technical achievement.
100%.
No, not 100%. 14%.
No, I give... Yeah. Yeah. I mean, looking at my my stuff, I gave editing a 7 out of 8, and then soundtrack, cinematography, the rest of the technical stuff got full marks. It's not going to get... I also gave it 14%. But yeah, I agree with you. Everything is just solid in this film, and the cinematography is fantastic. Yeah. The sound is fantastic.
I would go so far as to say not everything is solid, but everything is near perfect. Near perfect.
Yeah, I agree. 14 out of 15% for overall technical achievement. Atonement. You surprised me. Can I just say that?
You know what? It surprised me too.
When the wheel landed on this film, I did not think it was gonna get this high of a percentage from me. I thought it was gonna be in the mid low 70s.
Yeah, to be honest, I had no idea what to expect, but just the fact that it's a romance, and I had never even heard of it, maybe that's just because I live under a rock, and also just I wasn't even really familiar with the director's other works. I was skeptical, but it scored decently high for me. Should we take let's say the percentages first. What was your final percentage for this film?
Yeah, so all tallied up, my overall percentage was an 83%.
83, nice. And my total percentage was an 82. So we're pretty much in agreement.
Wow. So
82.5 for the total percentage. To me, this is just such an example of this honestly could have been one of my favorite films of all time if they just had an amazing screenplay. Because, if the screenplay is amazing, all of a sudden now the beginning is stronger, the story is stronger. Honestly, if they just strayed away from the book a little bit more, maybe. I don't know. But the screenplay really dragged the score down. Yeah. Let's take a quick break.
Okay, we'll take a quick break.
Yeah, and then we're
going to come back with the wheel.
Yes, sir. All right,
and
welcome back. It's time to spin that wheel. See what we will be reviewing in next week's episode.
I do not need QuickTime Player this week because I do not have my computer with me, so I will be spinning on my phone.
It's a sad day. No QuickTime Player.
But we have
even rely.
Handy screen recording.
Our wheel is branded now, so if you follow us on Instagram, you will get to see the new branded wheel.
It's awesome.
On our story.
And we are spinning in 3, 2, 1.
Ooh, I'm hyped. Honestly, at this point, I have no expectations.
Okay.
What do we get?
My guy. We have just landed on my personal all-time favorite movie, Children of Men.
Oh, what?
Children of Men.
Stop being Birdman.
I thought 2 years
Birdman
ago.
Was your favorite.
No, 2 years ago. Okay.
Children
of Men. Have you seen Children of Men?
No.
No?
No.
My guy, you are going to love this movie.
Yeah?
This is...
You're just an Alfonso guy, hey?
Oh yeah, I love Alfonso Cuarón. And it's Emmanuel Lubezki cinematography. I think this film is going to hit the 90s, just saying. I think this is going to hit the 90s for
We'll see, man. I'm actually really excited. Okay, yeah. Oh, wait, dude, this is our shortest film by far so far.
Yeah, how long is it?
109 minutes, and if you're bad at math, that's just under 2 hours. So,
hour and 49 minutes.
Yeah, so our shortest film yet. Do you want me to read a quick plot synopsis?
Read that plot synopsis.
All right. IMDb, good old trusty IMDb. I'm really excited to watch this film. In 2027, in a chaotic world in which women have become somehow infertile, a former activist agrees to help transport a miraculously pregnant woman to sanctuary at sea. That sounds pretty crazy.
Oh, okay. Let's just say, I love my tracking shots, and this film's got a ton of tracking shots.
Okay. Yeah, I'm expecting a lot. if it's Lucas's all-time favorite.
My all-time
And
favorite movie.
we will see if it delivers. This film is from 2006, it looks like.
Yeah.
Theatrical release in 2007. Directed by ya boy Alfonso. And it is starring Clive Owen, Julianne Moore, and Michael Caine. Some great names. Love to see it. Especially Michael Caine. I love that guy. All right, yeah.
That's going to be fun. Okay,
make sure you
that's awesome.
Watch this film in preparation for next week's episode, just so you don't get any spoilers. Assuming this movie could have some twists and turns.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Let's we'll see you again next week, guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Make sure you watch Children of Men.
Yeah, thanks for listening to Atonement, and we will see you guys next week.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Slightly Qualified Film Students.
Make sure to tune in next week for a new film discussion and review.
Our theme song is Slightly Sexy by Thompson Springs.
Make sure to subscribe and leave us a like.
Send us feedback and comments as well as your thoughts on the film. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at S_Q_F_S.
If you would like to send us a question or a comment for next week's episode, you can email us at sqfilmstudents@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.